Thank you, everybody, for coming back to 2023 for the Reliably Intermittent podcast. My name is Andrew Esposito.
And oh, oops.
No, that's okay. A little rusty. Go ahead. Introduce yourself.
And I'm Amanda Reese, a little eager to start talking.
Well, we're doing it via Zoom. So we went in person, then to Zoom. So it's a little challenging. And we have a guest today. So we have us today, Melisa Fisco, out of our Akron office to talk about some
afternoon.
stuff. So to start off the new year in a good way, right? We're going to start out with, I'll say like an employer's behaving badly, or for us Clevelanders, we can maybe like, this is the mistake on the lake, right? So something that just happened up there. That's, I don't want to say near and dear to my heart, because that's kind of a strange analogy for what we'll be talking about, but maybe something that is an important pressing issue for women in the workplace, or just people trying to start a family in general. I guess it doesn't have to be isolated to women, but I know it definitely is going to affect them disproportionately for sure. So nothing like starting off 2023 with a hot button issue in our backyard. And I wanted to kind of set the baseline for what happened and then kind of turn it over to you guys for kind of what went wrong. Is there any way to fix it? How prevalent is this issue? And then a litany of things that come with that. So to set the background, there is a law firm in Cleveland that is currently under a firestorm of social media on LinkedIn, and it spread pretty rapidly. I think it started last night. And at least in my view, by rapidly, I don't see too many like LinkedIn posts that are getting interacted with on the tens of thousands of times. You know, like a couple hundred people would be a really good response. So a post was made by a couple female attorneys that apparently had an associate that had a really terrible experience with a partner. And she was out on leave and on maternity leave. And when she came back, or she didn't come back, or came back and then left for another job, something like that was the scenario. But after she had left, one of the partners, and I was going to say allegedly, but I don't think that's even necessary because the firm has come out and made a public statement as well. So one of the partners had stated this via text. So I'll just read it. This is a text message from the male partner to the former female associate. Okay, so quote, "What you did collecting salary from the firm while sitting on your ass, except to find time to interview for another job, says everything one needs to know about your character. Karma's a bitch. Rest assured, regarding anyone who inquires, they will hear the truth from me about what a soulless and morally bankrupt person you are." This is after they have left. Okay, so that is from the partner to the associate who left. Now, probably not more than 24 hours later, after this has taken some legs, and by the way, been picked up by probably the most popular kind of law gossip blog there is above the law. The firm themselves, and just to not like kind of malign some people, right? So like, the firm partner who put out this statement is not the one who's accused of anything. So definitely partners, but different actors here. There's founding partners and this and that. So the founder of the firm, or co-founder, put out this statement. Said, "Recently, I became aware of an inappropriate and unprofessional text that was sent by an employee at our firm to a former employee. The single text was sent in the heat of the moment by an employee upset by the belief that the former colleague, while on paid leave, sought employment with another law firm. Within days of her return to work, she took a new job. That's not an excuse for the offending text, which should not have been sent. That single text has prompted some to question our commitment to fair treatment, diversity, and other values that our firm holds dear and believes in fervently. I stand on our firm's record of how we treat our employees." I'm going to omit the firm's name. People can find it really easily, so they can do their own thing. The firm prides itself on focusing on supporting working parents with modified schedules and other accommodations. For more than a decade, we have offered open-ended paid leave for maternity, paternity, and other forms of medical leave. Numerous current employees, women and men, have availed themselves of this benefit. We do this because we believe it's the right thing to do. As a result of this incident, the firm is taking corrective action. We are taking a purposeful look at our culture and what may need to change. While we cannot undo the past, we can change the future. We are committed to turning this negative into a positive. Okay, so a lot to unpack here. I kind of want to start off with Melisa. Not because you have lived this specific thing, well, because you are a mother of 2 children. And for those of Melissa's 1 year, I think you were 1 year behind me at law school.
Yeah. You were graduated 2011. I was 2012. And so been out of law school for a little over 11 years now. And like I think a lot of young female attorneys, I had my first child just in the few years after graduating law school. I had my daughter Emily in 2015, and now she's going to be 8 years old this year. And then my second daughter Livia, who is going to be 5 this year. And so I can understand the experience, and it certainly is nothing new. That's for sure. It's nothing new, and it's not restricted only to this attorney or this firm. And so it is something that I wouldn't say, I wouldn't go as far to say that it's every place, because like the original poster of the message said that she had worked for a firm for, I think, 15 years or something like that. And she had a very good experience. So it's not to say that every firm is like this, but that this isn't a new thing. It only is something that is right in front of our faces because of this text message that was widely circulated, and just something that very easily grew momentum in hours, really, to reach thousands of people. And that's just the nature and the power of social media. But I think it was really interesting that the post was made by what seemed to be, and I don't know her personally, but what seemed to be a very experienced and high-powered female attorney versus the individual who received it, or maybe somebody who was kind of new out of school. It gained a lot of attention and a lot of momentum, I think, because of the person who posted it, because she was well connected, as well as other people that were commenting on it. I noticed a lot of pretty well-known attorneys that were weighing in as well on this type of subject.
And when you first saw the post, I think that's a good point. Did you see it from the, and this is not the firm, I have no problem, from the Baker Hostetler partner, or from one of the other?
No, I think it was from one of my own connections of somebody that I went to school with, that, and I don't know if she knew her or if it was something that she saw through some other way. But it's just amazing that in just a click of a button, it reached so many people so quickly. And really, yeah, I think it resonated with particularly a lot of parents. The phrase of collecting a salary while sitting on your ass really, I think, made every mom's head explode in that moment, because when you read something like that, you go back to the days of maternity leave, which is don't get me wrong, it's great to have the time off, but it's an awful, terrible time in a lot of ways. You like to have the time with your child, but it's an incredibly difficult experience to go through. And you really need that time off to be able to heal yourself, to be able to take care of a newborn. It's beyond me that anybody would have to work during that time, or that anybody would even be capable of working during that time, especially during those, I would say, those first 6 weeks that are the true physical recovery period. That's just my take on it.
Do you, I mean, it may be a sad state of affairs, but do you think it gets the traction, like you said, if it wasn't posted by some of these higher powered, more well-respected females within their position within the Cleveland community or even the national community? Do you think it gets remotely the same traction, or does it have to be supported by such overachieving people to get any remote?
Yeah, I think it probably would have still gained some attention, maybe not quite as widespread as it did with the individual who posted it. but for the individual perhaps who posted it and the others who are weighing in, they may have looked at it, and I don't know if they're mothers themselves, many of them I'm sure are, probably looked at that and saw themselves 20, 30 years ago, and things of course weren't better then. They were, I'm sure, a lot worse in terms of leave and the different benefits and things and privileges and stuff, whatnot that are afforded to parents now. But I'm sure that they looked at that and became very angry, and rightfully so. But yeah, to answer your question, Drew, I don't think it would have gained quite as much attention as it did with this one.
Yeah, well, and I mean, anytime you put it in writing, right, is kind of a good way to seal your fate. And I mean, obviously, we were talking about this before, even meeting up to do this podcast today. And I mentioned that I said I thought it was kind of some of the funnier comments were the men's comments that were, like, yeah, this is terrible. And then, but it would always be like, especially because he put it in writing, right? Like this kind of like, oh, and like, if you don't do it in writing, you're fine. But what an idiot. We
Right.
all do this, shouldn't I was like, and I'll say, just from the man side, not defending that, like this is, I like said, it's not, at least from what I've seen, prevalent, but then I'm one-sided, right? Like, I feel like you tend to associate with people that probably mimic your character, right? Like, I don't think I'd be friends with someone who was like talking this way. So just because I'm not friends and don't run in that circle also doesn't mean it's not prevalent. And I think that's like where not just men, that could be anybody. It's like you get in your own echo chamber of friends, your own echo chamber of politics, your own echo chamber of morality, right, of what you like to do. And so many people go, I never see it, so it doesn't happen. Well, we have 10,000 women, or call it 9,000, whoever, who have interacted with this post, and they're all like, yes, this happens. Like, at some point, men and women just, like you said, the author's like, I've had really great experiences. It can't discount people that have had these terrible experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think this type of, if we're talking only specifically about maternity leave, this is the type of leave that also happens to occur at the time when, as a female, you likely have the least clout and leverage that you'll ever have in your career. You'll only have more the older you get, and as you practice, or maybe not practice if you're in a different type of role, as an attorney or as a professional like we do. But I think that what was particularly bullying about it was the tone of it, and the tone that is from a much, I think, more senior, male attorney towards a younger female, and likely that he believed he'd have people rallying behind him of saying, how dare she? We put the time in so she could sit home. How dare she go look for another job? And probably believed that he would have some sort of support around him in terms of just that, the firm culture, or the legal profession culture of saying, this is unacceptable that anybody could look for a job while they're on their leave. But of course, if she's recovering from childbirth and having to work while on that leave, I can really understand why she would do that, right? Because let's say if it was a male attorney and he had some sort of surgery, and childbirth can very, very much constitute a major surgery, particularly if you have a C-section. But let's say the male, attorney has some sort of surgery, and they expect him to be up in his hospital bed with his laptop and billing. I think people might be pretty outraged by that, and they should be, because anybody who's on any type of medical leave, and this constitutes a medical leave, shouldn't be expected to work while they're on that leave. And if it was somebody reporting to me that had this leave, I wouldn't want them to, because I want them to come back 100% for me, even if that might take a little bit longer. And so I think one of the things Drew and I talked about was just this concept of playing the long game, not being so short-sighted about it. Yes, leaves can impact the bottom line, particularly with billing, with revenue coming in. But isn't it the smarter decision to allow the person, the individual, to have that time to be able to work themselves back to being 100%, to be fully present when they are back, to be able to generate that revenue to make up for it, I guess. Not that anybody should have to make up for it. But just this concept of having somebody work while they're on their leave seems particularly inhumane, I guess, is the best way to describe it. And really problematic with maternity leaves, because if we're concerned at all about the individual and postpartum depression, having somebody nursing every 90 minutes and then having to research and do briefs and things like that would be terribly stressful. It would likely perpetuate that sort of thing, or make it, I guess, easier to happen.
Amanda, when I dumped this in your lap today, what was your initial thoughts?
It was wow. I hadn't yet heard about it until we spoke. And once I looked into it, it was wow. And it took me back beyond just the whole pregnancy issue and everything like that with women. It took me back to the old thing. I know we've always heard about the glass ceiling and stuff like that, or I don't necessarily believe that glass ceiling is fully there anymore. Like there's obviously some cracks in it and there's some holes and things like that. But in just looking into some things, women are still fighting harder than men in the workplace to make close to what men make as it is overall, not just in the legal profession, but overall. Within companies, a lot of the board seats are traditionally not held by men, or not held by women. Men still dominate there. Right now, we're looking at about 28% of corporate board seats are held by women. So that number is slowly going up. However, in 2022, that increase in the number of women in corporate board seats has actually slowed down a little bit. So 2020, 2021, it was a fire with lots of women coming into those roles. However, it slowed down a little bit in 2022. I don't really understand the reasoning behind that.
I bet you it's directly related to pandemic, right? Like, because like regardless of growth and things like that, and both genders entering the workforce and all this stuff going on, I would venture that people in like social sciences would say, when a couple is given a choice where they've reached whatever type of security they have, financial security, safety, debts paid, the person who leaves the workforce, I would venture that 9 out of 10, it's the woman. So I guarantee you, like the pandemic hit, a lot of people did actually well financially, 19, 20, 21. They may have had growth. There may have also been situations where, since females kind of dominate certain areas of the workplace, like teaching, healthcare, not necessarily doctors, but nursing, stuff like that, maybe in nonprofits where they would be at boards, right? And they had to work in the pandemic and may have been overly stressed, and then use this as, I don't want to say use this as an out, but actually got burnt out and was exhausted and was like, I can't deal, right? I bet you revert to some things that are just ingrained from, pre-19th Amendment stuff, like, the person who goes home is the woman's taking care of the child. So I would bet, like a social scientist would say, a dual earning income household, if given an opportunity for one person to quit, who would quit? It would be the woman. I'm guessing, completely stab in the dark, but that's my guess.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Now, when you've got this happen between, and I think, Melissa, how you read it, like it's definitely like a senior person talking to, or like some sort of power dynamic, like obviously there's attention and headline grabbing stuff, like the above the law, like the quote, like, or their tagline for their article was like, woman sits on ass on maternity, like it was exactly that, like the offensiveness of, what do you think happens in maternity leave?
Because only someone who's not there would say that, right?
Yeah, like I birth a child, and then I'm just relaxing and my newborn is feeding me grapes, and waving you with a fan. I'm like, I don't know if you know how long it takes for self-sufficiency of a newborn, but it certainly isn't like a situation like in the wild where a deer is born and then like is walking within 30 minutes and then is left on their own. It's not quite how it works. But I think the more, at least for me, the more concerning stuff was like the implied threat of repercussions.
Mhm.
That bothered me because like if you do have it, and I don't think this is just the legal community, this could be any professional community where you're tight knit. If you're CPAs, if you're private practice doctors, if you're contractors, if you're home inspectors, like all these niche professions are these communities, and the guy's basically saying, well, he's not basically saying, he's saying karma's a bitch. I will make sure everybody knows about it.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
How else
And the expectation perhaps that this person was just so powerless that she couldn't do anything about it. But that obviously proved wrong
Oh.
because she had these connections to be able to elevate this issue. So I'm sure that that's something that was really a big regret, sending it, of course.
I didn't even
but
think about that.
oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that there's
Like I can just say whatever I want with
Sure,
no
who are-
repercussions.
right, exactly. Who are you and what are you going to, I'm somebody who's been practicing for 30, 40 years, and you're somebody who's been out maybe 5 to 10 years. And
Yeah.
what are you going to do about it? You're not going to do anything about it because I have the support behind me. But obviously that was wrong because I think that there's a true distaste for this type of thing. But then when it's brought to the forefront and something that's very tangible that people can see and share, I think everybody tends to take their ire out on this one thing because they know that this goes on, but who can they point to? They don't know when or where and how it happens unless it's brought about by, unless you can see it in this type of medium. And so I think that there tended to be a lot of anger directed towards this thing because of that reason. We all know that this is an issue that has to be addressed, but how do you how do you effectively do that?
Well, how do you? I guess that's the question. So then you've got the response, right? The first,
Yeah.
and I don't like. I'm not gonna. I think I read the response 5 times, right? And I am not like a public relations expert, so like I have no idea. And I can just imagine, let's say the outside of the person who sent the text, like let's give like the founders of this firm maybe the benefit of that they had no idea, right? I mean, like imagine you fought and you tried to build a firm, and like their last part of their statement, like we're progressive, we've tried to do this, and they fought so hard to have this environment. I don't like it. Just shows you like how much that can go if you're not cognizant of your people and what they
Sure,
do,
yeah.
and if you bury your head in the sand and ignore, because there's no way they don't know this is there. I don't know.
I mean,
it's a
I
tough
think
one.
the first step, and it's really for everybody to do, male, female, regardless of your position in an organization, is to start kind of unlearning this concept that I feel is embedded in this type of thing, that taking a leave, particularly a maternity leave, is not a benefit to the organization, or that it somehow makes you less dedicated of an employee, or that you have less time. I think that I certainly have less time than I had before I had kids, but I'm a much more effective worker. I feel like I deal with our clients a lot better than I used to because I can understand people a little bit more, different walks of life, parents now, or, having lost my dad several years ago, just the different learning to work with different generations and the different life stages that people are in. So, don't estimate this concept that a life change like having a child, or, going through any sort of like major medical issue, it can actually make somebody a stronger, better, more effective employee in the long run. And so don't discount that this person's just useless because they have life going on. Everybody has life going on. And so I think making any type of organization, a place where people can see themselves at every life stage, at every life event, whether or not it's maternity leave, or their kids are school age, or they're helping support their spouse with some issue, or maybe elder care. Like, we all have it, unless we don't know anyone or have any type of family. I mean, everybody has life happen. And so when you look at it from that perspective, I think it's really important. Like, I know that the folks that I work with here who were here when I had my 2 kids, if something was going on with them, I have their back in a second. What do you need? Can I back you up? What clients are you working with that you can't, make this meeting or this appointment because you have life happening, and having each other's backs in that way. And that's a truly strong team, and it's a truly strong organization when you have that going on. And I think that takes years of support and reinforcement. I think that's really how you fix the situation, and sort of how you unlearn these different biases and stereotypes.
One of the questions I was asking, and like you said, I think it is years, and so like not, we've changed a lot here over the decade that I've been here, for sure. But the question I'd ask, like specifically, not a question I'm asking Melissa, but a question we always ask when we advise our clients about doing background checks and things like that. You ask the past employer, would you rehire them? Like, are they eligible to rehire? And I think that's a really good question to kind of maybe ask yourself. Like, so if one of your employees left voluntarily, right?
Like me.
Correct. Exactly. But like, would they come back to you?
Yeah.
If given an opportunity, if their life changed, if maybe you can't afford to pay them what they would make somewhere else, right? And there's nothing you can do about that. Oh, well, maybe it is a law firm environment that does have a lot of burdens hours-wise, and they want a much more 9 to 5, right? Or a place that requires you to be weekends. And they go because of whatever stage of their life, kind of like you're saying, well, see, I need more regular schedule. Like, I can't be called by a client and have to go to a board meeting at 7 p.m. My kid's starting dance, and my husband works too and is out of town, right? I need a 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
I need something I can do that. But then when things settle down, would they come back to you? And if we can ask that doing background checks of employees, maybe a little like looking in the mirror is, for everyone who left that we would have loved to keep, right? Would they willingly come back? Like, and I think if you can say yes, they would, that's at least one indication that hopefully your culture, your work environment isn't going down the crapper, right? And you're hopefully on the right path.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and that when it was after I had my second daughter, and I was back for it was a little under a year, maybe about 10 months, is when I left to take another position. And the response that I got was not a bit negative. It was, congratulations, we're going to miss you, keep in touch. And I did. And for 2 years I was at Cuyahoga County, and it was something that it wasn't right for me. It wasn't the position that I wanted. And, something worked out where I was able to come back, and it's turned out to be wonderful. And so and like had mentioned earlier, that the idea of playing that long game, isn't it a good idea to take care of people when they need it, and they will take care of you when you need it. And that doesn't necessarily mean stay. They may not stay, but they may leave and be very positive. They may send you good applicants for hiring, referrals for work. I mean, you name it. There's all kinds of positives that can come out of treating people well, even if it means they aren't just indebted to you for a 34-year career.
Yeah, the intangibles that you can't measure. Now, so Amanda, for Zash, for the statement that the firm put out, I may mute myself on that one thing. I'm trying to be polite. For the statement that the firm put out, and I don't know if you read their statement, or I can read it. Like, I guess, like, I don't want to take away from this incident in any way of this, but like also some takeaways for like how we talk to our clients. And like, you very well could have like a crappy manager that does something terrible that does not reflect on you. And it's spiraling out of control. Like, you do need to address it.
Yeah.
I read this like 5 times. So, I mean, good, bad, indifferent. Could it be better? Like, I mean, what are your guys' thoughts? Because they have employees, and their employees are going to read this too. I think, like, a lot of times the PR, I feel like, is for your own employees, so you don't have like mass exodus.
Sure.
Right. Yeah, and I think everything can always be better. You know,
Fair point.
everything
Yeah.
in the world, nothing is ever perfect. I think this firm did a pretty good job though, as to just trying to get it out there that this is not the entire firm, it's not accepted, those kind of things. Because when you are doing this PR things, you need to be careful about how it's phrased and things like that. So
Mhm.
I think it's a pretty good statement. I think obviously this firm has a lot of other things that there is going on. They have one person there who said some pretty inappropriate things. So that obviously needs to be addressed. And I think the firm statement is good. I think any company dealing with someone in leadership who makes some kind of statement, I think they should go about talking about professionalism within the workplace, how important that is, because no matter how high someone gets within an organization, the higher you are, I think that's when professionalism becomes even more important,
Mhm.
where you're not just treating your equals professionally, you are treating the lowest level employee at the company equally or
Mhm.
professionally as well. You need to be careful that across the board, you're treating everyone appropriately and professionally. I think also culture within workplaces needs to be looked at too whenever a company or any kind of employer is dealing with someone who is in a higher role that's making inappropriate statements, because clearly the culture is not that great if someone's
Yeah.
making these kind of statements. And I who knows if this may have been the first time and only time that this kind of statement was made, but oftentimes when people are making those kind of statements, they've made other statements. And there may have been other times when women felt uncomfortable when different things were said, or when anyone felt uncomfortable. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be based on gender. But
Well,
yeah,
and
I think the firm, yeah, I think they made a pretty good statement.
is that, I think, kind of like Melissa, you think maybe this was the first, but the fact that he felt comfortable enough texting it is like, well, either I'm so confident in my power or authority, and this person's lack thereof, or maybe that's like the it could be either or. You know, if you're that comfortable, then what is there? Yeah, when I first read it, I agreed. I agree with your assessment. And then I was like, little hindsight's 2020, right? Like, so you can always revise and get better and better. Um, I would say it's human nature to be defensive, right? So, like, I get that. I would say for all my clients, like, I know you really want to be defensive, but in this scenario, like, if your statement is going to be there is no defense to it, then
Sure.
don't provide a defense. Now, saying like I'm proud of my business is different than saying like a defense. So like when I read that first paragraph where it was like the one text, right, in the heat of the moment, you know, like it was like all that was like all this is like, and then she was on leave, came back, and then left. And then it was like, now there's no excuse. I was like, well, what's the whole first part of that? Like, it should just be like, there's no excuse for this type of text message. Like, you don't have to rehash the fact that she
Mhm.
was on leave, came back for a day or two or whatever it was, and then left. Like, that's like, to me, it's like you're trying to color it. Like, just say, hey, this was really bad. We're dealing with it. Now here's our record too. You know, like, we're proud of ourselves. This is what we've done. We we do leave where we don't have to do leave, right? Like, hey, we give maternity and paternity in this whatever open-ended leave means, but like, we're not beholden to these laws, but we do it anyway because it's what we do believe is right. Now, we didn't control it, but like, I would just say this is who we are. That was my only issue, was kind of,
Sure. Yeah. Well, and when we hear things like, well, it was just one message, it was in the heat of the moment, what is sort of reminiscent are those arguments that oftentimes an employee's attorney or perhaps a union's attorney will bring up in like discipline cases of trying to see those like mitigating factors. And it's interesting when it's about, management or, senior person in the organization, because so often it's flipped that we're saying, well, this is egregious, nobody should do this. It's not really heat of the moment. If it's correspondence, heat of the moment is in person, and you say something you would take back. I think it was a good idea to make a statement because there was so much commentary around it. So I think it was a good idea I think everybody was sort of waiting for it, honestly. So it was good that it was made. Was it perfect? No, but
it's going to be tough to get it perfect.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It could, you're probably balancing like, how many times can we revise this statement and how much time is ticking? Like, we have to get it out there, like, because like this is the 20th time we have all, whoever, the brain trust of people that have looked at it have probably been staring and crafting a statement for like literally like 10 hours collectively.
Yes.
It's not something that was like, let me give a one pass of this one and send it out. But it's a crazy, and then this is, I was just like, people with social media, I was like, how quickly things can turn, and just in a blink of an eye, like, but I don't think this comes to light. I don't think this comes to light if it wasn't for the two women, at least that were on my LinkedIn feed that it came up with, are both very brilliant, very successful. And I think like kind of you both were indicating like are at a point in their careers. And maybe they would have done this early in their careers. I don't want to say that, but like, I think they've recognized like, I am very successful. I'm very comfortable. I'm very confident. I'm not 5 years in, hopefully on a partner track, thinking about having a baby. And that's a different ball game. Like, there's a certain level of security if you've already put in 15, 20 years and you're sure of yourself, that comes with that. So that was the side that I think, me looking at it, I can't relate to. I mean, like, just like I don't have that understanding. And when I read the whole post surrounding the text from the person kind of speaking on behalf of the woman, I was like, oh, I call me whatever. Like, I just don't think about that. And then there's a whole nother line of things of people that are thinking about their decisions day in and day out.
Absolutely.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. I can remember towards the end of law school interviewing with a firm for an associate position. And so that would have been back in 2012. And I can remember at that time, the only, female partner who was in the interview asks me, well, what are your personal life plans? And that's not job related, right? Come on.
How quickly do you want to get pregnant?
Right. How frustrating. But she wasn't a guy. She wasn't the top managing partner. So it happened. I think it happens across the board too. It's not just men making the statements. It can come from females as well too. So it's not just a problem to address from one perspective. It's really organizational wide. And like Drew and I had talked about like a little bit before this about policies where, you could have the policy in place for parental leave. Let's say an organization's too much like us, we're too small to have be covered under FMLA. So there's separate parental leave policies. And you can have these different sort of leave policies in place, but having the training for everybody to be able to understand the policy and maybe communication surrounding the policy. You could have the best intentions and have the people at the top that are on board, but maybe somebody in the middle or like this individual in the position who just totally missed the whole point. And so making sure all of those things are wrapped up, not only just with the policy, but with the training and with any kind of communications related to the leave as well.
Well, I don't think I have anything else on it. It was a, I hate to say pile on situation, but the torches were lit and the pitchforks have been out, and there was no missing this if you were kind of in this area, if in Ohio, certainly not the Cleveland or Central Ohio area. Are there any other takeaways from you guys aside from obviously like, hey, don't do this, right? I mean, but like, I think, any takeaways to old guard, like, I think I agree with you, Melissa, because actually where we clerked, not old guard, but we had a case at that firm where it was a big sexual harassment case, gender discrimination, not like, not sexually based, but just gender based. And it was a female partner of a top immigration firm who was like horrendous to women. Like, you will not get pregnant, like this and that. Like when I was trying to become partner, I wouldn't have even dreamed of being pregnant. Like you can't, like, was brutal. So it does go both ways. And I think obviously there's a lot more men in positions, so a lot more that happens too. But
Yeah,
like,
certainly. I mean, I just think getting a maternity leave isn't forever. It's a very limited time. It's a moment in time, just like life events for other people are a moment in time and shouldn't be treated any differently. And if you respect the fact that the person wants to have a family and have these things in life, you got to be able to treat them fairly, treat them well, and that will pay dividends in the future. That will, help generate more clients, more revenue. The positives cannot be understated from something like that. Even if in the immediate time the bottom line is affected. And what I will say is if a maternity leave really detrimentally impacts your bottom line, there are probably other issues going on too that you gotta be able to address. I mean, that's not the only problem. If it's just directed as being the only problem, but it's not a problem. And
Also-
that's what people need to understand.
by the way, and also like, and I get plenty of people don't want to announce they're pregnant like right away or anything like that. Lots of different reasons, security, the frequency of, spontaneous miscarriages in the first trimester, things like that, where you don't want to get excited, then have to break the news to everybody. So I get that. But let's just say it's a healthy, normal pregnancy, God willing. And let's say, the mother or husband or whoever wants to notify their employer at like 16 weeks, right? Something a little bit comfortable. It's also not like you're getting it sprung on you that this baby came, like you said, there's something more. Like you had 6 months to prepare for someone being off for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks.
Yes.
Like how, there's something missing there.
Plenty of people within the organization can collect a salary while sitting on their ass at work.
That is
so
true.
you maybe need to take an analysis of what's going on with the people that are there too.
Oh, I think that's a great point, right? Like, hey, hasn't there been a little bit of, some fat cat sitting, all over the place for sure. And then we'll see. We'll leave this and see if I'll bleep it. When you were saying it, like thinking about it'll be profitable. No, we'll leave it in. I was like, it's actually a loss leader. And I don't think I should describe having a baby and then being out for having a baby as a loss leader, like it's some sort of marketing tool. But I do think you're more profitable. Like, so I don't think you even have to say, I'm all altruistic and progressive and we provide these leaves because we're better than thou and an amazing company. That may be a reason why you do it to start. But I think once places do it and then realize that they get more productivity, get better responses, get better applicants, get a better image out in the public, that everything that was maybe altruistic ends up being completely selfish and capitalistic.
Sure.
Just like you said, like, hey, I didn't want Melissa to leave, right? And I'm happy that she's pursuing a career that'll make her happy, right? But selfishly, I do want you to come back. So I better be kind and treat you right because I want good employees, right? Selfishly, I want you to come back, right?
Right.
Right. So it's exactly what you're saying. And so, yes, do you lose a little bit now and then gain possibly an employee for life? And then even if it's not for life, for 5 years, and those 5 years are great. So be it. It's tough, but I think for your small size, mid-sized businesses, they got to start looking at these things. And Amanda, what you were saying about their statement, being good. Also, like if what they're doing about this open leave, like that is all really good things. I think small businesses should look at these types of leave policies and start looking at them with a more open mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other closing thoughts?
I don't think I have any.
I don't think so. This rocked the boat though. Yeah, hearing about this is like, wow, okay. This stuff still happens. And whenever you hear about stuff like this coming up, it just, I don't know. It just gets to me.
I'll do a final word or final lessons. Like you said, it rocks the boat and gets to you. Like, so this is, I will point out, this is the naivety I think that does come with male, female, different dynamics. It could be age too, right? Rocks the boat, this and that. Like, to me, I'm surprised. And to both of you, you're like, no, yes, this rocked my boat. Yes, I'm seeing this in black and white, and there's a shocker because I'm seeing it in black and white, but it doesn't appear to be any type of surprise, any type of actual news.
No. No.
Yeah, women are still fighting to become equals to men overall. Unfortunately, that's how it is. Yeah, women are still making what, like 80 to 83 cents to every man's dollar and across the workplace. And that's when I hear things like this, that it's affecting a woman, it really gets to me.
Yeah.
But I think just having this is, we're going in the right direction, at least. That's what I think. I think things are better than they used to be even 10 years ago when we got out of school. Because there's more of an accepted discussion about it. And that's the first step. So I do think that things are better than they used to be. They're just not quite there yet.
It's always a work in progress, right?
Right.
The human experiment, right? Just always a work in progress. All right. Well, that's all we got. Thank you, everybody who tuned in and is listening, for chiming in and watching and listening to the Reliably Intermittent podcast. If you haven't, please subscribe on any of the channels that are available. All of the major ones we're at. You can comment, like, share, do all that fun stuff. And until next time, thank you very much for watching.
Bye.
We want to thank you again for joining us on the Reliably Intermittent podcast. It is disclaimer time again. This podcast and all podcasts on this feed are for informational and entertainment purposes and not legal advice. No attorney-client relationship is created by listening to this podcast. Should you require or desire legal advice, we advise you and strongly suggest you contact a licensed legal professional. Thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.